No, you know for sure that's not Moshe.
Tov.
No, you sorry.
Beseder Gamur. Tov,
Trying
tov,
to teach
tov.
Gerzi how to pick an argument with you.
I got Melushal, but you say non Melushal.
Not Moshe.
No, it's a Surah Goy, it's all there.
Everyone,
Benoit. In opinion of Rambam, and Ishmaeli, and Benoit is Kalvachon and Benoit. If they touch it, Nikana, you can still drink it and also enjoy the wine. But he says, in my opinion.
Buddhist.
He does say my opinion, doesn't say.
Beseder, Heilige Tzadikim, we have a coffee. Anyone would like a drink? Everyone's good? Yeah?
Yeah, yes,
Beseder, Tzadikim, Tzadikim. Our avodah today, Be'ezrat Hashem, is to spend some time looking at the experience of forgiveness. Experience of forgiveness, which we have a number of different labels for in Yiddishkeit. Be'ezras Hashem, at some point we will look into the halachas of Slicha and Mechila and Kapara. Today though, I would like to share some, maybe more of the general, the general background practices from a general perspective, more than a specific halachic perspective on forgiveness. The reason being is, if one really goes into forgiveness, it's strange that we have to do it, because when a person doesn't forgive, the repercussions are weird. You can have, for example, a person who has hurt another person, and person A who hurt person B. What are you trying to? You're not going to. What are you? Pardon? You're interrupting me. Did you see that? He interrupted me. He interrupted me. I resent him now. Trying to. You witnessed that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have two witnesses.
Now I have to practice forgiveness. Try forgiveness now. So you have person A who hurt person B. Now, what's really weird about this whole setup when one person has hurt another person is that when person A finished hurting person B and they've gone their way, person A has left the scene. Person B is really annoyed with person A. Now, if you think about it, what does this have to do now with the original situation? Because probably person A doesn't even care about person B. So you have person B who is really hurt, and you have person A who did the hurting, and now person A, they've gone on their way to do whatever they're doing, and person B is left in a mess. And 5 years, 10 years, 20 years can pass, and still person B is left in a mess, and person A is sababa.
So you're speaking about unintentional?
I'm saying it could be any sort of hurt that's being created. The person who got hurt sometimes could end up feeling hurt and feeling pain and feeling resentment years after the event took place. And moreover, the person who did the hurting, they're off on holiday somewhere. And the person who was hurt, they still feel, I wish them, they shouldn't be successful, and they should fail in their friendships, and etc., etc. That's right.
That's right.
So it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing, and it's important to look at it. It's important to explore it. And as we said, we're not necessarily going to the halachic issue. We're going to go more into the practices to help create forgiveness. Because at the end of the day, we always have to ask from a certain sad of our avodah, as the Rebbe Rashab writes in one of the Contrasim by Chabad, the Eved, you have to ask, what's in it for me? There has to be some sort of eineg, there has to be some sort of hana in my avodah. So what's in it for me? Why is it good that I forgive? So if one thinks about it, I mean, maybe I can ask you, why is it beneficial to forgive? Throw out a couple of ideas. Why is it good to forgive somebody? What does it do for us, the person forgiving? You feel good. You feel good.
Probably erase part of the bad karma coming in the future.
Yeah.
Months or years.
Yeah. So I would call maybe liberating. There's a liberation. When a person forgives, there's a liberation. When a person forgives, at the end of the day, you feel better, as we said. You feel better. Anything else anyone can offer? What are the benefits?
Mitzvah points.
Mitzvah points, yeah. So, forgiveness is very, very beneficial. Forgiveness is very beneficial. Now, before we go into forgiveness, I want to share something to do with the bigger picture of the Chagim. We have Rosh Hashanah next week, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. We have Yom Kippur and we have Sukkot. And there's a few different ways of looking at Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur and Sukkot. From one side of the coin, we can look at Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot and Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur and Sukkot, as we're not going to go into it now, Chochmah Bina Dat. Chochmah Bina Dat, Rosh Hashanah being Chochmah, Yom Kippur being Bina, Sukkot being Dat. We can also look into Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot the other way, that Rosh Hashanah is an aspect of Dat, Yom Kippur is Bina, and Sukkot is Chochmah. We could look at it both ways. And this relates as well to another idea. The idea of present, past, and future. So on one side, we can look at Rosh Hashanah being present. It's about the present. It's about the present. Yom Kippur is about the past. And Sukkot is about the future. We could look at it from another perspective as well. That Rosh Hashanah is about the future. Yom Kippur is about the past. And Sukkot is about the present. Why? Why do we bring this up? Because at the end of the day, as we've spoken about, to be an Adam Yashar, to be present, to be wholesome, we have to, that's our goal. Stop for a minute and just think about that. That's our goal. Our goal is to thrive, as we've mentioned so many times. Our goal is to thrive. Our goal is to be alive. Our goal is to inspire, to influence, to impact. That's who we're meant to be. We're meant to be beings that shine out an unbelievable light. That's our Avodah. That's who and what we're meant to be. Who and what we're meant to do. This is what it means to be a human doing, the human doing and the human being, in order to literally generate the best light that we can in the world through the gifts that we have to give to the world. If we don't have a well-defined future living with purpose, it's very difficult. If we don't deal with the past and life's issues, it's very difficult. When we want to live in the present, we want to be really comfortable in the present, knowing that we've dealt with everything that needs to be dealt with. So, when we look, say for example, we say Rosh Hashanah is the future. Rosh Hashanah is the future. We say to Rabbi Shalom, listen, this is where we want to go in life. This is who we want to be in life. Yom Kippur is letting go in order to come to the moment. Sukkot, which is being really present, it's breaking away from the norms and being really present. If we want to look at it the other way around as well, we can. We start off by realizing that everything is okay in the present. Rosh Hashanah, I'm in the present. I make Rabbanu Shlayla Melech over myself and over Am Yisrael. It's not about tshuva, according to the Gra, it's not about tshuva. And we were metaretz the Shara Kavanot. The Arizal says, if Bechi falls upon you, if tears fall upon you, that's good, but don't force it. Being present.
I understand Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In what aspect is Sukkot's past or present?
So Yom Kippur is about the past. So we said this time round,
Because you make tshuva for past sins.
exactly, and it's letting go of the past. Sukkot is about Geula. Sukkot, there's a very messianic aspect to Sukkot. Everyone coming to fit into the Sukkah. There's a very messianic aspect to do with Sukkot as well. Sukkot David, that we should restore David's Sukkah, King David's Sukkah. So it's a shir within itself that there's a very strong description of Geula to do with Moshiach on Sukkot, but as well there's a very strong atmosphere of being present to do with Sukkot. So it could be both. And we give a shir, maybe we'll give it on Yom Tov, they don't contradict each other. They don't contradict. Maybe on Sukkot we'll give it over based on the Arizal, the Maharal. They don't contradict each other. So, in order to thrive, in order to live big, in order to live being a person of action, we have to be able to deal with things that can hold us back. Now, as we've said before, what holds us back from thriving? Our midot and our emunot. Our belief structure can hold us back, and our midot can hold us back.
Our jobs.
What do you mean our jobs?
No time for anything.
That shouldn't necessarily hold you back, because wherever you find yourself, you could be Megala Hashem's light, wherever you find yourself. So what happens? What happens is that when we are, where were we up to? 1 second, backtrack. Have some help.
What holds us back?
What holds us back? Thank you. So what holds us back? As we've said, we can have beliefs that are unhealthy beliefs. They hold us back. And we have as well the midot that can hold us back. Fears, insecurities, loneliness, self-criticism. All of these things can hold us back as well. So we're trying to deal with, through the Chagim, on one level of Avodah, one level of actualization, we're trying to deal with coming back to a place of alignment, as we said a number of weeks ago. Yashar is Yud, Shi, and Reish. Yediyah, Shmiya, and Re'iyah. That I can have this level of presence. Then I can start to listen to really what's going on, and then I can see differently. I can change my perception. So, what happens is that when we're going through this process of the Chagim, again, it's to come out the other side realigned, revamped. We're there to give 110% of self. The world deserves the gifts that we have to give. The world deserves it. And if we don't do it, we're limiting, as we said, Hashem's light in the world. Kaddish, Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Yehei Shmei Rabbah is that I myself should remain alive and give. I myself should remain alive and give. That I shouldn't be diminished. That my light is diminished. Yehei Shmei Rabbah. And as we said, if somebody's nifter, there's a lesser light in the world. So, when we speak about Yom Kippur, and we're speaking about forgiveness, this is one of the biggest things that hold us back. Self-forgiveness, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the Rabbanu Shel Olam. So many people have grudges against the Rabbanu Shel Olam. And it's to forgive. And as we said, we're not necessarily going into the halachot of forgiveness, but obviously this is part of the halachot. We're looking more at the how-to. And it's admitted that we need to practice. Slicha, mechila, and kapara, forgiveness, is a midah that we need to practice. The Aaron Eidos, he writes something so beautiful, and this is generally on midot. Generally on midot, he says, why does it say Asher bara Elokim la'asot? Why does he say la'asos? So he says that if a person does not use their legs for a very long time, what will happen to their legs? Fatigue, atrophy. If a person doesn't use a body part for a very long time, atrophy occurs. So the Aranedus, he's speaking here about physicality, that we have to use physicality in the right way, because there's a spiritual dimension which will diminish. Yet he says as well with midot, if we don't flex the muscle of forgiveness, if we don't flex that muscle of gratitude, if we don't flex that muscle of attitude, as we've said, we become the whatever nature will make us. That's what we become. The world will own us, and we become whatever happenstance will create of us. So as we've said, we have to get up and we have to mean it. Not to get up as an accident. We have to take responsibility and control. But it's wonderful for us. It's wonderful. Because when we take control and when we live a life of strength, when we live a life of courage, when we live a life and we're flexing a range of emotions and midot, at first it's difficult because we're giving of ourselves. However, the benefits are absolutely amazing. The benefits are amazing. Because, there's an equation. It's a beautiful equation. I was learning with somebody this afternoon. And what's the equation? Success equals, you can say like this, action or knowledge plus skills plus action. Correct? Success equals knowledge plus skills plus action. That's a good equation? Yeah? You learn something, you have the skills, and you do it, and then you finish it, success. So, one of the Kabbalists, remember he said something which really, it's very profound. It's very, very profound because, again, it's dealing with everything that we've been speaking about. There's another part to the equation. Success equals knowledge plus skills plus actions take away negative self minus negative self. What does that look like? So you can give somebody everything that they need to succeed. And because of their fears, because of their insecurities, because of their self-sabotage, because of excuses, it's not going to happen. So you can give somebody, you can build them, give them the right knowledge. You can give somebody, come on, I'm going to train you up, let's go for it. And you can help them act. But if they get in the way, they'll bring the whole pack of cards down repeatedly. So this Kabbalist added in, success equals knowledge plus skills plus actions subtract negative self. And it's so, and this is something which, it's very, very powerful. It's very powerful. As we said, nobody can hurt you without your permission. Nobody can hurt you without your reshus. A beautiful sentence the Pilzno Rav once threw at me. I heard him say it to somebody else and their face lit up. They'd had conversations beforehand. Nobody can hurt you without your permission. Again, it's an inside-out reality, not an outside-in reality. It's how life looks. That's where Torah is trying to get us. So when we speak about forgiveness, when we speak about the Yom Kippur to clear up what was, it's absolutely wild. The benefits are profound. So many people, for years, are held back by themselves. And then they don't forgive themselves, and then for another bunch of years, they don't do what they need to be doing. So, Be'ezras Hashem, listen, as I expect you, if there's something you don't understand, please ask questions. Don't just leave it, don't just leave this a one-sided communication, please. So, we can start off with something interesting. We could start off with something interesting that when we speak about the month of Tishrei, we're told in Devarim, the Targum says that Tishrei is the beginning of the year. Tishrei means you shall begin. Tishrei can translate you shall begin. And what Tishrei is, it's a month of coming back to, as we know, it's the scales. Tishrei is about the scales of Mosnaim. So I remember somebody once mentioned something very beautiful. We look at the scales, either it comes down here or it comes down there. It's one. What about keeping them balanced? What about keeping that it's not about this side goes down or this side goes down. It's about keeping them balanced. That Tishrei is the beginning of the year where we reset ourselves. We come back, as we said, we press with a little toothpick the factory settings. We come back to a place of balance. That's what Tishrei is. It's restarting our journey. It's restarting our journey. You know, one of the Hasidic Rebbes, he says something very beautiful. He says that if on Yom Kippur we feel bad because we did our sins, you know that's really powerful. Why? Because you came to realize how important you are. You came to realize how important. You did Averos and you have to do tshuva. You messed up. Wow, you're choshev. You could mess up. Sometimes we either hurt ourselves. We either hurt ourselves one way or we hurt ourselves another way. It's coming back to a place of neutral. I've done the tshuva. I realize I've got self-value. I've got self-importance. From a humble perspective, living from a place, as we said, of das. I'm not looking at the scales tilting to the left or tilting to the right. Mosnaim, the scales, they equal both sides. They equal both sides. Whatever that may mean in regards of schuyot, but the construct in our mind is reset. It's reset. That could be the construct in our minds to look at Tishrei. And we're starting again. Tishrei has another meaning, though. Tishrei has another meaning. So the Aramaic root is shiri, which means to loosen, to dissolve, to let go, to untie. And the Piskei Rabasi comes and says that is the meaning of Tishrei, to let go. To let go. And it's this interpretation that we're going to look at tonight. It's this interpretation to do with forgiveness. It's a letting go. And as we know, we have other words as well: slicha, mechila, and kapara. What's slicha, mechila, and kapara? So slicha, mechila, and kapara are different accents of forgiving. Slicha, mechila, and kapara are different accents of forgiving. However, what's very interesting is the words themselves come to express letting go and weakening. So for example, if we look at kapara comes from the language of covering up or wiping away, cleaning out. The root lashon is used with the menorah, cleaning out the menorah. We have, for example, mechila, which is related to the word, the shoresh is chol, and chal, which means you've got kedusha and you've got the mundane, the weekday and the Shabbos. It's again an aspect of letting go. And then slicha, as well, is an aspect of weakening. It's lach, which can mean moist, evaporation. And even if we take the word refuah, the source of the word refuah, you know what it is? Rafa, resh pei hey, means to let go, to weaken. So it's unbelievable. Even the healing itself is letting go. Why? Why? Because what happens is every experience we have of life etches away at our memory. It leaves an imprint in our memory. And sometimes when a person goes through some sort of ordeal, that becomes part of our makeup. And when that becomes part of our makeup, that obviously will affect our perception. And we have to recognize and realize that if we don't deal with our issues, they could become self-beliefs. They could become beliefs. When a person's in a situation and they've been hurt, they can turn around and make that generalization. This sort of people hurts. Or this person hurt me and I can't relate to them. Why? Because that's what our midot do. They're there to protect us. So when a person had a bad experience and they created within them some sort of memory, that memory left unattended can grow into something terrible. The deepest weeds in the garden. And sometimes it's the closest relationships that can hold such intense, subconscious or conscious resentment. Because misunderstanding, a lack of communication. Yes, sir.
So I think we all agree that forgiving is very good and we should all do it. But if you are hurt, and you have this thing in yourself, then how do you get rid of it?
So that's what we're going to go. We're going to go there.
I'm not completely sure. If one person doesn't say I'm sorry, and one didn't exaggerate in the response, I do not completely agree that one should forgive the person.
So
One
that's
should forget
up.
the
So
person.
that's up to you. That's up to
For
you.
sure, I will forget the person. I will not keep the.
So
that
that's
feeling
your
inside
call.
forever.
That's up for you. That's up to you. But there's that you can't forget if you don't forgive. And at the end of the day, what we said at the beginning.
I forgot a lot of things.
What does forgiveness mean? What if you don't forgive, it means it's still in your heart. You didn't let go. Let go is forgiving doesn't mean you have to go to that person and say, I forgive you. It has nothing to do with the other person.
no.
Forgiving has to do with you. So the only way you can forgive is let it go, like you just said. If you let it go, you'll forget. If you don't let it go, you'll never forget. It may be in your subconscious. I'm not saying you think about it all the time, but you'll always have it.
You can somebody hurt you, you can let go and not think about it, but still don't like this person because you think he's an idiot.
Those are two different things.
So you're right. That's
So
what.
you didn't
That's
forgive.
So you didn't
So you didn't
forgive,
forgive
but
him,
you
you
forgot.
You know,
No.
letting go is forgiving. If somebody does something to me from 30 years ago, okay, he slighted me, and I never forgot him. I don't think about it now, believe me. But it's still in the recesses of my subconscious. Anything that we keep inside of us eventually will come out, and the further back it is, the worse will eventually come out. It's actually better that it's in the forefront than in the recesses of our background.
So
You hear all these
it's a
stories about
deep-
people who
yeah.
go through trauma therapy because they never released things. They didn't even know it was there anymore, but they acted on it not knowing. So
There's a lot of residual. There can be one reason why. This is what we were saying. That one reason why it's so important to learn to forgive. The benefits is that you feel tremendous. You feel very different if you do it properly, and if a person doesn't forgive, what could start to happen is there's a residual build-up of emotional energy, and that can define us, and it usually does define us, and we have to become very aware of it. The more that we can become aware of it to the best of our ability, the healthier it becomes, because sometimes we could end up doing things that we don't mean to do, but we do as a defense mechanism, because we never dealt with something. Now, what's interesting, I'll tell you something that's very, very interesting. Life sometimes takes a turn that we act a certain way, but we don't remember the original why. So a person could have wronged somebody, and they don't actually remember what they did, but they just remembered they were wronged, and they don't want to deal with them. That's something that does happen. So a person can remember the feeling, but again, that could become very dangerous, it become very toxic.
part of our psyche as an has been, when we talk about Chet Egel, we talk about that we're part of Chet Egel. How can I be part of Chet Egel? Okay, you're going to tell me that I was at Har Sinai, blah, blah, blah. That's all very nice. But the bottom line is that things that happened generations ago is still reverberating with us.
Yes.
Okay? How does this happen? It's because we have a psyche. It goes further than ourselves. But we don't, it's very hard to let go of anything, actually. So you have to consciously work with it.
So this is the exact nakuda. So what we've discovered so far through the etymology of the words of Tishrei, Slicha, Mechila, and Kapara, even Refuah. Now Refuah is very interesting. Refuah, healing. This Reish Pei Hey, Reish Pei Aleph, it means to let go, to loosen. that a person can become very self-obsessed. And when a person's ill, it's interesting from a psychobiological perspective if a person has to be obsessed when they're not well. Why? Because is that to do with healing? So, for example, there's certain people, Ernie Rossi, in one of his papers, for example, he writes that the immune system is kicked off when there's a self-observation, when you go into self and you feel a nebuch, and you're in bed and someone's looking after you, actually helps the healing process. But what happens when a person starts to heal? They can come out of themselves again. So this idea or this experience of refuah and letting go is very important as well. So now let's go in a little bit more. When we're speaking about refuah, when we're speaking about slicha, mechila, and kapara, in the system in the map that we've been expressing, what have we said? We've said that we have a nefesh, which is the lower self. Not lower within worse or bad, just the lower part of self, the more coarse part of self on a certain respect. That's nefesh. Within nefesh, we have what? Hirhurim, regesh, and rikshe gufani. There are midos. So we have fleeting thoughts, we have emotions, and we have physical sensation. Now, as we've said, true you, essence you, is your awareness. Your awareness is the part of you that can observe your thoughts, you could observe your feelings, and you could observe your physical sensations. You are not them, they are a part of you, you could observe them. That's who the true you is. That's who you is. We even said, as we said in Selichos, that the neshama belongs to Hashem, neshama lach, and the guf belongs to Hashem. We are our awareness. Now, what happens in regards to forgiveness? We are dealing with tikkun amidos. We're dealing with tikkun amidos. Now, refuah, for example, or first stage of slicha, mechila, and kapara, is to create that distance, to know that the feelings that you are feeling against the other person, they're not you. They're not you. Number one, remember, all the time. The Ramchal tells us, there's a beautiful Ramchal, and the Ramchal tells us, we're never out to hurt ourselves. We've been brought up in a Western world, you be quiet. We've been brought up in a Western world where we have been taught to qualify and quantify. Sometimes it comes to express within us, this is right, this is wrong, this is bad, this is good, this is successful, this is non-successful. So, for example, we can come to think that anger within us is no good. But really, we have to take a different attitude. We have to take a different attitude. Anger is a defense mechanism. Anger is protecting you. It's a midah, and it's protecting you. It happens to be, it's not a good midah, yet the truth is, it's not there to hurt you, it's there to protect you. And as we've said, we brought from the Cheshbon and Nefesh in the second parak, midot, they don't have a bina and a ratzon. They're called little children. So first is to realize who we are and who we are not. That's number one when dealing with forgiveness. So the things that hold us back are always there to help us. And this is a very big attitude shift for us. It's a very big perception shift. It's a paradigm shift to realize who we are. I am my awareness. Now, sometimes people, because they have the midah of control, they want to control. And really, in essence, a lot of these midot are about control. The ego, it gives you this false perception that I need to be in control and I am in control. And that's why we have the midah of bitachon. Bitachon is there's an unfolding of events in the reality that I live in, and I'm not in control of it. Just as I'm not in control of the sun coming up and the moon coming up, So too, I'm not in control of other people. They have their own story. And as we said before, so many times, arguments that occur have nothing to do with the actual person being argued at. And we've given over this story plenty of times, how a woman walks in and she sees her husband at the table, a little bit of dirt on the table, and she goes crazy on him. She flips out. And then she rushes off to her room in a bad mood. She comes out 10 minutes later. I'm so sorry. I was at the bank. There was no air conditioning in the bank. And as you know, just to sign a signature means that you have to have 13,300 pieces of paper to sign and everything. You know, really bad day. Had nothing to do with you. I'm sorry I took it out on you. How many arguments are actually like that? But what happens is that we buy in and we make it personal. That's number one. To realize who we are and who we're not, and to realize other people have their reality as well. Everyone's clear on that? Now what happens is that it's very natural to feel feelings of hurt, to feel feelings of resent, to feel feelings of pain, rejection maybe. We have all these wondrous and wonderful sensations, feelings and thoughts that are speaking to us and that are communicating to us. So again, there's a premise. None of them are there to hurt you, period. None of them are there to hurt you. They don't know any better. So we have within the words, Selicha, Mechila and Kapara, Tishrei, letting go. So first stage is to realize and isolate who are you and who are you not. Number one. Number two, to just meditate and realize that as we've been speaking about over the last number of months, that your midot are out there to protect you, not to hurt you. What happens now? What happens now is as following. To create a situation for forgiveness, you even have in the words, forgive, which to forgive you have to give. You have to give to a new reality. You have to give to a new perception. If a person wants to come to attain forgiveness, you have to, number one, be ready to choose. You have to choose to let go. It's a choice. And when I'm choosing to let go, when I'm coming and saying, okay, I choose to forgive, I choose to let go, there has to be a set direction to go in. So people try to forgive, yet when they try to forgive, they're not doing anything. They're just trying to forgive and trying to let go. However, as we know from one of the most important fundamentals of the Baal Shem Tov tells us, Sur mira ve'a seitov. Sur mira is to move away from something. Yet, what else do we have? Asetov. We have to be going somewhere. We have to let go. We have to have a Yom Kippur, but we have to have as well a Sukkot. We have to let go, Surmir, but we have to be going somewhere. We're told in the Chassidish Sfarim, Rabbi Nachman speaks about this. The mind can only hold one thought, one conscious thought at a time. The mind can only hold one conscious thought at a time. So when we want to forgive, we have to make that declaration and make that choice. I choose Ad Kan. I choose Ad Kan. Because at the end of the day, who's really being hurt when I don't forgive? I'm being hurt. So who are you making a pact with? You're making a pact with yourself. Yes, there's a Bein Adam L'Chavero, a Bein Adam L'Makom, where you turn to the Rabbanu Shel Olam, you turn to somebody else, and if you feel you were hurt, you have to turn around and address that with that person or even with the Rabbanu Shel Olam to talk it out. However, in essence, It has to start with a choice that you make. I choose to end this. But I have to as well know where I'm going. So there has to be an asay tov. Sur mira va'asay tov. And that asay tov is related to hamtaka, fixing up a midah, sweetening the judgments. That asay tov can look like a few different things. So for example, number one, with yourself, you can take note of how you're feeling, just to stop and just to resonate with what's going on. Because a lot of people, what happens, by default and by the natural evolution of who and what we are, we don't deal with it and we move forward. And then a couple of years later, we still are feeling the feelings that we've been feeling. So number one, it's to stop and just comfort ourselves. We have to comfort ourselves. If we don't comfort ourselves, if we don't take note of where we are, we lose out. We lose out. It's to take note of ourselves. Other very helpful things to do. Write a letter. Write a letter. Write it out on paper. When you write, by the Bala Avodah, by the Muslim movement, they will do a lot of writing out. They'll write a letter. When you write out a letter, it could dissolve. It can dissolve. You can write out a letter. So we spoke about, pardon?
Only for yourself.
You could write it out for yourself. However, you could as well turn it into a letter that you'll send to this other person. You can do that. But you have the option there to write it out. You want to say something?
Actually, it's a question. Will the content of the letter be to...
All right now to do with yourself. This is all right now to do with yourself. That you would comfort yourself. You make a choice. You make that choice. You realize who you are and you realize who you're not. You take note of how you are feeling, to be present with yourself and to acknowledge the feelings that you're feeling. Then, in regards to yourself, you can write a letter. You can write a letter. You can even have an imaginary phone call. You can speak out. You can imagine that the person is in front of you and you can share with them. You can find a quiet place and you can share with them. You could use your imagination to imagine they're in front of you and you can talk it out. You could write out the letter. Pardon? Yeah, write out the letter by hand or write out the computer on the computer. Now, what happens is that you have to as well realize, as we mentioned before, that the other person, they have their viewpoint of reality. So there's as well jumping into, and the Sasva Rebbe would do this. Remember he told me, or remember a couple of times where I discussed with him an issue, he says, try to imagine where they're coming from. Try to imagine why it built up that this situation happened. So he would build up and he would come and he would say, go inside and figure out why they reacted the way they reacted. What happened in their life? What could have happened in their life? Because it creates a deeper understanding. It can create a deeper understanding. As well, he would say, is that we have to remember at the end of the day, just as you are going through everything that you are going through, so just as you have these feelings because you're protecting yourself, how do you know? Is it different that they're going through the same thing? They felt they needed to protect themselves. Maybe they felt they were wronged. Maybe it was the upbringing. Try and find something to bridge the difference. So it could even look like, and again, it's found in a lot of self-help books. Sasva Rebbe used to do this. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants respect. Just as I want respect, they want respect. Just as I want inner peace, they want inner peace. Just as they want comfortability, I want comfortability. Just as I want respect, they want respect. Just as I want love, they want love. Find what connects you, because again, at the end of the day, sometimes what happens is that I had this conversation on Shabbos with somebody, and they're going through a very, very difficult situation with somebody, and you know, their feelings towards the person, they're not so toxic. They just want them dead, and they hate them, and they want them to fail in everything that they do, but it's not so toxic. No.
Sounds like it's a marriage.
Divorce. But what happens, at the end of the day, this person turned and said to me that this other person is now potentially getting remarried, and it looks like they're sababa, they're fine and they're happy, and the person who I was speaking to is in very deep pain. So I said to her, how dumb is that? It's like really dumb. That's what we do to ourselves. The other person's fine and happy, and then we're left in pain. If we remain in lower self, that's what will happen. We'll become victims. But if we tap into higher self, and we reflect our higher self on the world, life looks very different. I want him to be happy. Okay, it didn't work out with me. Hopefully it'll work out with him. So it's finding what is real. What do I want? I want happiness. That person wants happiness as well. Maybe the person's not well, so I'm expecting from that other person to apologize when I know they're not going to apologize, and I'm going to feel miserable about it while they're happy. We're weirdos. We're really weird, but that's what we do to ourselves. In so many situations, that's what we do to ourselves. So again, create that distance, knowing who you are and who you're not. Comfort yourself. Comfort yourself. Take note of how you're feeling. It's okay. We're not robots. We're here to have a human experience. Comfort yourself. Write out a letter. Write out a letter. Or speak out what you need to speak out. Realize as well that we're not here to hurt us. We're here to protect us. Bridge the gap. Just as they want respect, just as they want love, I want respect and I want love. Realize that it's illogical and it's a little bit dumb. It has a very powerful effect on us. By the way, when we realize that we forget sometimes they don't know what we know. Sometimes we don't know how much they've hurt us. And that's something to take into consideration as well, because as we said, they have their own reality. They have their own reality. There's something important to do as well.
To know that it could hurt more.
Pardon?
To know that the other people did not know what they did. Could hurt even more.
Of course it could.
Because it's because of loneliness.
Yeah.
It creates loneliness.
It can do, 100%. Yeah.
So where is the
100%.
end? Where is the end?
The end is to realize as well, even within loneliness, it's a feeling. And you can be mamtiki, you can create for yourself a situation to heal yourself. So what happens is that you can talk to the person. You can talk to the person, but it's very important when you do talk to the person that already it should be as less toxic as possible. So you can speak to the person. Now when you speak to the person, you can say to them, are you prepared to speak? You could set it up that there is a health to what's going on. Are you prepared to speak? And when you speak, is it possible you can remain quiet so I could just share with you what's gone on? You can speak to the person. And usually, hopefully in a situation, the other person will sit down and listen. If it's toxic that it can't happen, there's all the self-work that we can do. Now what happens is that we have to replace what's going on inside with something new. We have to replace that which is going on inside to give us focus and give us direction. So when we've done this work, I choose to move in a position, I choose to move forward in life. I choose to move forward. Now, what's going to happen is we get plagued sometimes by thoughts. We get plagued by feelings. We get plagued by physical sensations. And it takes time for it to pass once we have done the work. It takes time for it to pass. So every time it comes up, we have to catch ourselves. And we have to say, no, I've forgiven them. We're moving forward. It's okay. It's okay. I forgive them and I wish them the best. And I found this is very helpful. Any time that I have been in a situation, I think it's three times in my life where I've been in this sort of situation, I had to catch myself. I had to catch myself. Shh. It's okay. I wish them the best. They're good. I wish them the best. I know you're there. I know you're hurt still. Everything's okay. Let's move forward. We have to catch ourselves. And we have to future pace. What life do we want for ourselves? We always have to come back to our world view, our personal world view. What life do we want for ourselves? I hope that we would want to live a life of thriving, a life of love, a life of playfulness, a life of success, a life of healing, a life of giving, a life of learning, a life of loving. We want that. We should want that for ourselves. And if anything gets in the way, we have to move past it. If you remember Selichos, Moshe Shabbos, we told over one of the Baal Shem Tov stories. Baal Shem Tov, not a story, but a moshel. Why does a child work? Amen. Why does a child walk? Why does a child walk? Why does a child walk? Does a child walk for the sake of walking? No. It's easier for the child to get the object that they want. That's why a child walks. Why does a child speak? They speak for the sake of communication, not for the sake of IQ. Speaking is the vehicle that they can better express themselves. That's the end product. They want to express themselves. Walking is the vehicle that can help them climb onto the cupboards, get the cookies, and make a crazy mess in the house. We have to live as a child. We have to live for our outcome. And make sure that we don't get caught up in the negative process. Just imagine, I can imagine your little 2-year-old kid, my daughter's running and climbing, and as she's walking, and she falls over once, falls over twice. She tiresomely lived for her outcome, and she didn't live for her failures. She tiresomely lives for her outcomes, not for her failings. Anything that's going to hold her back is not even in her consciousness. And so many people live a life where they're not living for. They're not. They never thought about it. Or they did think about it in yeshiva, and then they got married, and they're living in their lives, and now they're dried up. So many people I meet. We have to be passionate about our goals and about our values. They should be so compelling, they draw us towards them. I don't even have to push so much. What is going to happen is that we will get plagued. That feeling, if the name is mentioned, that thought that can randomly come up when you see something that associates, and you have to say, no, it's okay. We're living for higher things. It's good. I wish them the best. They're okay. If we don't let go, our past will own us, and if it owns us, we're not going to do what we want to do. We're not going to have as much fun as we could have. We're not going to have as much intimacy as we want. We're not going to enjoy as we could enjoy. We're not. Yom Kippur, every year, as you guys know, we mention Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot is, especially Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, therapy days. They're therapy days of the deepest connection, the deepest intimacy. Standing before the Rabbi Shalom wherever we are and saying, I'm here. I'm here. Rabbanu Shalom, I don't have any clue about what I want to do, but I'm here. Help me. And this is to do with the neshama, because what holds me back, it's all in nefesh. Nefesh, all these feelings, these thoughts, these physical sensations that hold us back, they block us up. They block us up and we can't connect to neshama. Our goal is to connect to neshama, that we could let neshama shine down through our ruach into the nefesh, that we can shine bright. We know by the Elul Baal Shem Tov, we tell over this story during Elul and on Rosh Hashanah. The Baal Shem Tov is in his Beis HaMedrash, and he says to his Hasidim, come, we're journeying, we're going for a ride. And all the Hasidim come out, and they climb onto the carriage, and they start riding. And they come to the fork in the road. It takes you deep into the forest, which they've journeyed many times before. And the other road takes you to the river, takes you to the pool of water. There's a pond, which is frozen over this time of year. And they come to the pond, and there's people ice skating. And all the Hasidim, they're looking at each other. Why has Rebbe brought us here? So Baal Shem Tov comes down off the carriage, and he goes to the edge of the frozen pond where everyone's ice skating. And what he does is he picks up his eyes and he sees everyone ice skating, and then he becomes fixated on something for a couple of moments. Then he turns around and he climbs back onto the carriage. And all the Hasidim are looking, what the heck? What just went on here? What did we miss? What did we miss? Everyone clambers back on. Weiter! To the Stiebel! When they come into the Beis HaMedrash, Baal Shem Tov says, you didn't chap? He says, no, we didn't chap. I went to see what a cold heart does. I went to see what blocking ourselves up does to us. You see, when the pond in the spring and in the summer, it's water, it's fresh. But when things become cold and colder and icier and iced over, what's the hanhaga of the Notzrim? They scratching crucifix is a good sign charm. It's a good luck, they scratch in a crucifix. And I wanted to teach myself what a blocked up heart does to us. Within a couple of months of having a blocked up heart, within a couple of months of detaching ourselves from fresh water, from the flow of reality, that we get caught up in hurt and pain. Mamash, it's Avodah Zarah. We turn everything, we ice everything over. Everything has room now to become Avodah Zarah. Our goal is to live like water, be like water. Water can fit into any container. Water can take any shape. It flows. Maim chaim. I can't drink a lump of ice, but I can drink water. Be like water, my friends. Who do I sound like? But the point is that it's okay. The ones who understand.
Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
I thought it was from Star Wars.
No.
Who's that guy?
Baruch Lee.
What's the name?
Yoda.
Yoga.
Baruch Lee. Say, be like water. It's such a deep Torah. It's such a deep Torah. So what does resentment create for us? What does distrust create for us? It creates distance. It creates the inability to connect. It lessens intimacy. And this is something that we have to come to really think about. That when we stand before the Rabbeinu Shalom on Yom Kippur, even with Rabbeinu Shalom, you think Rabbeinu Shalom, Rabbeinu Shalom forgives us. We have to forgive. We have to turn around. We have to forgive if we feel resentment and pain. We have to turn and say to Rabbanu Shalom, I forgive you, Hashem. It's okay. It may sound strange for people.
It's not strange because most people have kindness with the ones.
Yeah.
They won't mouth it. 'cause
They
it's
won't
not
mouth
politically
it.
correct, but of course
They
do.
won't mouth it. I know so many people. I'll tell you a story. I was with a certain person in the community here who they've had a lot of issues. And I took them out to a field and I said, say what you want to say to the Rabban Shalom. And this guy was so like, I'm scared. I said, it's good you're scared, but still say it. And I pushed him to say it. And he started cursing and screaming and shouting. And then he started to cry. And then he started to laugh. For 40 years, he wanted to blame Hashem. And subconsciously, he blamed Hashem every day. Subconsciously, he was bitter with the Rabbeinu Shalom every day. He let it out for about 45 minutes. Just screaming and shouting, and he never davened the Shacharis the next day since he was like 16 years old. He felt such connection. We have to, Yom Kippur, Hashem forgives us. He forgives us. Yom Kippur, Hashem. But He wants connection. What does forgiveness do? What are we doing when we forgive? When we're being real? When we're being real and we're being healthy and we're making a choice. I'm choosing to sumira. I'm staying away from this because I want intimacy. It's about intimacy. It's about closeness. And how many lives are lived with such a distance? And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And when we can create a safe space for us, that we have a chaverim, that we have a minyan, it's intimacy, it's closeness, it's yichud. That's it. Husbands and wives, parents and children, friendships. What stops us are our averas. What's an avera? We moved off target. We forgot what was important. And we let junk in the way. And until we let go, we harbor distance. The distance of resentment. We harbor distance of uncomfortability and awkwardness. We harbor within us distance of disconnection. All it is distant. That distant from point A to point B, as we said months ago, after Tisha B'Av. That's what we don't want. We don't want point A to be here and point B to be here. Husband and wife together. Parents together. Friendships together. When we realize what's in the way and when we can let go, when we can have the slicha, the mechila and the kapara, when we could stand before the Rabbeinu Shalom honestly and sincerely, so Be'ezras Hashem, the Balei Gaiva will not understand what we've just said. The Balei Anava will understand what we just said. The Bal Gaiva will keep on feeling their nega. The Bal Gaiva, the ego lovers, will keep on loving with pain. They'll keep on living with resentment. The people who are of humble spirit, they will feel liberated. They will work on trying to feel liberated. They will work on trying to closen their relationships with honesty, sincerity, authenticity. And Be'ezras Hashem, litchazek. Before we end, does anyone have any questions? So you have something to think about? So we have Rosh Hashanah to play around with. We have Yom Kippur to play around with. And remember the words that work for you. Remember the feelings that work for you, because it's your day. It's not my day. My day is my day. My day is not your days. It's your days. It's you. Hashem Yisbarach gave you a Rosh Hashanah for you. Hashem Yisbarach gave you a Yom Kippur for you. Hashem Yisbarach gave you a Selichos for you. So Be'ezras Hashem, litchazek, will feel good, geschmack, have lots of fun, and live good, thrive. Say that.
We're relying on the tzaddik to daven for us.
Amen.
Yeah,
Tell me. I'm a bum.